Welcome to episode 259 of Friars on the Farm. I'm Donavan, and with me is Roy.
Oh, we're back. It's been so long, Donovan. I'm sorry.
Dude, it's well, you had a lot going on. You moved out of your rental. You were fortunate enough to be able to buy a place, and that doesn't happen overnight, and nor does it moving out of a place happen overnight. So you've had to do a lot of work. You've been busting your tail. As you guys see behind Roy, there's boxes still left to be unpacked. But you do see the Padres sign behind him. You've been busy, man.
Yeah, I'm proud to be a homeowner for the first time in a while. It's nice. But yeah, it's been a couple of months of a lot of work, long days, and just been hard for us to get together. So
Yeah.
we got a lot to catch up on. We got Padres playoffs, the end of the season. We got Arizona Fall League. We got a little bit of news. So coming up today on our MLB Minute, we've got the end of the season and some projections on 2025. We're going to kind of chit chat on that.
Yeah.
And then minor league news, we've got an unfortunate and an interesting story that unfortunately is related to the Padres, but we'd be talking about this if it was anybody else. And then after that, we've got a couple of interviews.
Yeah, I was able to make it out to the Arizona Fall League a couple weeks ago. A quick drive Saturday morning, hang out all day, do my interviews, 10 minutes, and they give me 5 minutes, which kind of stunk. We like to do, I like having a little bit longer format. It was pregame. They showed up the game before it went late. So they're like, you get 5 minutes. Okay, so they're pretty short, but we talked to Leodalis De Vries and a friend of the podcast, Romeo Sanabria, and two really good interviews. Watched them play, posted a bunch of the videos you guys saw on X, and yeah, we can go from there.
All right. So the last time we talked, I think the minor league season was just wrapping up. I don't think we even talked about postseason minor league baseball. But fresh in my memory is the whole postseason. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be at all the home games. I understand you were able to attend at least one of the home games. This is a pretty wild scene, huh?
We attended the clinching wild card game. We weren't going to go. It's very expensive, and we were saving money for a trip. And Liddy's brother said, "Why aren't you guys going?" We're like, "It's not cheap." He's like, you buy the tickets. I'll gift you the money." Um, right? I mean, I don't know what happens like that. Stuff like that doesn't happen to guys like me. And so we ended up going, and they ended up clinching, and it was insane. I mean, I've been to a Saturday game where we've come back, where it's been pumping with the crowd. This game was just off the hook. It was so loud. It was like a concert, and it was it was insane. Never seen that before in my life. Never felt my first playoff game, and incredible experience.
Yeah, the vibes were definitely off the hook for a couple of those games. Yeah, it's as exciting as this season was, and for me, this has been the most exciting, interesting, fun season of Padres baseball in my lifetime. Yeah, and some of my first memories were 1984. I wasn't going to those games, but I went to some games in 1998. I didn't get to go to postseason games, but I mean, as a season ticket holder, I can take advantage of the full cornucopia of Padres baseball.
Yeah.
And we've been through so many low times. We really are a little bit spoiled right now. But to fall flat those last couple of games was just so disappointing. And seeing how the Dodgers just kind of rolled through the rest of the postseason,
Yeah.
I couldn't help but look at that and wonder what if those bats hadn't gone to sleep for two games, this could have been the Padres year. But if ifs and buts were fruits and nuts, and every day'd be Christmas, right?
Yeah, it kind of goes the way the World Series went. Like their pitching just took it. Yeah, the bats went quiet, but their pitching really took off. Like Walker Bueller just started dialing it in, and so did Yamamoto. And you saw that once the World Series, that the World Series was looking like it was going to be a sweep, and we were going to look like, hey, it wasn't us 24 innings of no run scored. It's their pitching just dialed it up a notch. And I really have to say that, like, sure, the last couple games they didn't score any runs, and we were just a pitch or two away from kind of turning things around. But really, once you saw them go through the Yankees, and sure, there's a lot of power hitters, and there's tons of holes in those lineups at the Yankee lineup. But dude, I mean, they were just on fire. And to lose to the World Series champion and guy that had to be the Dodgers, and that's fine. Um, it was just a special year. Other than that, it was just an absolute special year. And it gave us a taste of what I think, the front office really saw all year, what the fans can do. And once the postseason comes, I mean, it was absolutely insane, that wild card clinching game. Just insane.
And I appreciated all the recognition from the players and the coaches and all that. The Padres, the fans really did bring it the whole season, and then the postseason turned it up another notch. Yeah, I nobody can say that this isn't a baseball town. People talk, oh, Padres fans, you're casual. You only show up when you're no. Padres fans have been showing up when the team was bad, but when the team's good, and it's more of a party than the only other place I saw that I thought compared to the energy that the Padres were bringing was in Philadelphia. Those Philadelphia fans, they
Yeah,
were packing that house and going bonkers from the first pitch to the last for every one of those games. So kudos to those guys too. Uh,
absolutely.
but I don't want to get complacent and I don't want to get that sense of entitlement like the Padres, they're going to be there next year. They're going to be there for the next 2, 3 years because there are no guarantees.
No.
And we were watching the Orioles all season. I thought the Orioles looked like they had a chance to go deep into the playoffs, and they didn't even make the playoffs. I
Right.
mean, or no, they got wiped out in the wild card round.
Yeah.
We can't go keep that attitude next year. It's like fresh slate. You got to earn it. Kind of like what we were talking to Tom Cosgrove a year ago. About how do you feel in the off season? Now that you're established veteran, whatever. Like, no, that's not.
Right.
No, I need to earn my spot. I need to earn my role, and that's this team will have to be disassembled and put back together, and then start fresh. Whatever February 15th, whenever pitchers and catchers report, it all starts over again.
Absolutely. And it's getting complacent. Like the first third of the season, we're like, there we are, team 500. There we are again, having the PTSD of 22 and 23. And then after the All-Star break, have the team just absolutely rocket and they couldn't lose the game to save their lives. So nothing is guaranteed. They were good the whole season. Mike Schilt, I mean, this is what I love about Mike Schilt. He's like, we're going to be good. Like he never faltered. He always had his players back. And when he spoke on some of those losses, it just didn't seem, he felt honest and it felt sincere when he talked about the losses and the way they played. It didn't seem like he was just going through the motions, going like, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. Like, hey, look, we're going to be good. Like, we are not playing good baseball right now, and we are better than this, and we are going to turn it around. I kind of like how that worked. It's funny how baseball for me works is, a team can get hot and then go cold, or, sometimes they get hot in the beginning and then, second half, they kind of die down. Like we did it kind of right, if you want to say it that way. First part of the season was just kind of like 500-ish, right around there, kind of trying to find our feet. And then the second
Most
half
of the
really
season
turned it
was
on.
like that. It
Yeah.
felt like 2/3 of the season they were up and down over 500. And at some point we had that conversation. That's who this team is. They're going to be a
Right.
500 team and they're going to back into the playoffs. And then as soon as we had that conversation, they just kicked it into high gear and they look like a whole different team out there.
Yeah.
And they kept looking like that team through the playoffs until, dang it, those last two games.
Well, it's funny because a lot of the Dodger guys are like, getting through the Padres was the hardest thing. Like it was a problem playing the Padres. And they weren't that, they were very close to not making it. So I think Kiki Hernandez said that once they started, when they went to the World Series, he gave the fans props. He's like, those guys, they hate us. And, I love that because, I love hating the Dodgers, but I hate them because they're good. It's one of those things. They're always the team that beats us. They're the team we have to go through. So I like that banter of like, yeah, they hate us. And I love playing guys that, I love playing in front of fans that hate us because our guys do the same thing. Tatis, what does Manny say? They don't boo the good guys. They don't boo the bad players. They boo the good ones.
Right. Well, the good news is they're rolling most of this team right over. They're bringing most of these guys back. You're losing a few players, but it's around the fringe. So they need to find something to do at catcher because you're losing Diaz and Higashioka. And I'm not sure if Camposano is going to be ready to take the starting number one job again next year. And we thought this was going to be his year, but kind of took a step backwards. Profar's a free agent, so is he going to come back? Maybe, I don't know, but that opens up a spot in the outfield. Where they're going to do it shortstop. Right now, if you were to draw it up, you would think that Bogarts is going to be the shortstop, but who knows? And then you've got something to do in starting pitching because Musgrove is out for the year. Darvish is 37, so you got to expect that he's
Yeah.
going to miss some time. And then Martin Perez was a huge piece of the second half. He was kind of an unexpected contributor, but without that contribution, I don't think the Padres make the playoffs the way they did. So there's some moves that they need to do, and there's not a whole lot of financial flexibility. It's kind of a similar story to what they had last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Preller is going to have to be very creative. So let's go over that. So as it stands, and this is from Jeff Sanders via MLB trade rumors with some of the projected arbitration money. So Dylan Cease is looking to get a 13.7 million in arbitration, King 7.9, Arise 14.6 million in arbitration. I think both all Cease and Arise, I think, are in the last. They're in the fifth year of arbitration. So after this, they'll be a free agent. Um, and those are the
So,
kind of the
so is
big.
Michael King.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Michael King also gets a little bit less money because he comes from from all this time being a reliever, stepping into that starter role. Absolutely just killed it this year. So the projected payroll is 198 million. The salary cap is 241. Now I don't think we're going to touch that, but we're going to have to put some money into this pay. They're going to have to put some money into this payroll to kind of make up for that because
I think so is this what Jeff Sanders put out?
yeah,
So I've got Fangraphs roster resource up here, and I'm not sure. There's always missing information in
right.
between. They already have the Padres projected payroll at 244 for next year. And so that includes estimated player benefits to be paid, estimated. Well, so you got Eric Hosmer, you've got his 12.2
Yeah,
dead money. You've got some buyouts. Ha-Sung Kim, now that he elected free agency, he's going to get a buyout. So and then there's also all the pre-arbitration money that gets paid out. So I have a feeling I don't trust that in the 198. I think it's going to be a lot closer to the cap than they already than that what that says. They reset the penalties last year. That was kind of the point. That was a big goal for 2024 was to reset the penalties. So the draft cap money, the international pool money, the opportunities to get other compensatory draft picks. They've reset that stuff. So now those penalties go back to zero. I think they're willing to go over that number. It's just a matter of how far. And maybe you look at that next penalty number, because the next number is 261. Maybe that's going to be the number that they're targeting to try to stay under.
woof. That's going to be that's a lot of money, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see as the offseason goes on what it does truly look like. Um, I do you give Profar a deal? Do you give um obviously Merrill is not going to get an extension, but like we need another starter. We need at least two starters.
I,
Um,
I'm not going to say I'm not going to write Merrill's extension off. I think that's a possibility, and the sooner they do it, the better. I mean, it's not like he's going to get worse. I mean, maybe he gets injured. Knock on wood. But I mean, the kid's only going to get better the next couple of years, and if he starts, posting like MVP caliber numbers, I don't know if that's in his future, but that price tag's only going to go up. So if you extend him now, you could get one of those contracts that goes 2-3 years into his free agent years. You buy
right.
out his pre-arbitration numbers, and they have those salaries that escalate. I guess the problem there is that the luxury tax is based on the average annual value. So some incentive not to do that. Luis Arias is an interesting candidate for a possible extension. So he's projected to make 14.6 million on your notes here. But is he really worth 14.6
Right.
million? I don't know. But if you sign him for 2 or 3 years, you could probably get him for a fair price and knock some of that off. So that might be a way of saving a couple bucks here or there.
Yeah,
I,
giving him
I
some
can't imagine
security.
that they would trade away Dylan Cease. And at 13.7, he's still a crazy bargain.
Yeah.
You could trade him and get some value back, but man, that having that ace at the front. I mean, he really took Blake Snell's role in the second half and was a huge part of this team. Yeah, I mean, say what you want about what he did in the postseason. I don't think that's who he was. He was an ace 80% of this season for the Padres.
Absolutely. So it'll be really interesting to see how that works. And obviously, I don't think this goes against the cap, but Mike Schilt needs an extension, and Ruben Niebla, like they need to secure those two guys first. You start with the leadership, then you work down towards the players, and then you go from there. I still think you want to give as good as Merrill was this year, and there's tons of promise there, high upside. You want to make sure that it wasn't a fluke. You want to make sure after that second year, the sophomore jinx, when all the pitchers kind of get a book on you, and you just see how it kind of goes. I think after next season, when some of that Hosmer money comes off, and we get a little bit clearer picture of the payroll, I think that's when they can really, they can really sign him to a larger deal. And like you said, you sign him through all the arbitration years, and a couple years into his free agency, and he's still pretty damn young. Pretty damn young. I mean, if you sign him to a 10-year deal right now, he's 30 when he's done at the prime.
Right. Well, so Schilt and Niebla. So Niebla, his contract just expired at the end of the year. Schilt is signed through next year, but it's unusual for a manager to go into a season as a lame duck manager.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the first things that was brought up in Preller's postseason wrap up press conference. And that was like priority number one was to do something to keep those guys here long term. And you look at what the team did this year and just the consistency, and you heard it from the players that this is the most consistent messaging that they were hearing from their coaching staff. Like every day it was just consistency. And the way that the bats performed, that Victor Rodriguez, whatever voice he brought, maybe he's finally the hitting guru that this team needed to finally start making contact and situational hitting and all the little things that have been missing from Padres baseball for so long. But all of that starts in Mike Schultz's office, and everything that came out of that pitching staff goes back to Ruben Niebla. So Ruben is from he's from
Imperial Valley.
the Imperial
El
Valley.
Centro.
Thank you. Yeah, and he's the mayor of the Imperial Valley. I swear, before every game, there's two or three guys that are coming up that are old friends from going way back that come over to say hello. And he's so comfortable. He's so happy being here in San Diego. But you can't just assume there's going to be a hometown discount. You got to pay the man. He knows his value.
No, absolutely. You got to pay both those guys.
I heard one of the guys, Ben and Woods, I think it was Woodsy, who raised an interesting point. Terry Francona he just took the job at Cincinnati. And who was Ruben Niebla, the pitching coach was under Tito Francona.
Right.
So I could see there's a new regime change there. There might be a little bit of force pulling him away, trying to say, hey, come back, work for me. But no, we want to keep him here.
Absolutely. Okay, so and then we'll see what Profar, Profar is it's a tough, the vibes there that he brings, and then the kind of the coalescence that he brings with all the guys is hard to beat. But he was well off the second half of the season. I think as pitchers started to get a little bit better of a book on him, and he just didn't hit as well. He didn't, certainly didn't perform too well in the playoffs. At least in that Dodger series. I mean, you can get him on the cheap. I think maybe a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option with a buyout. I'm not sure what that value is going to be. Is it $8 million? Is it $7 million? Is it $6 million? It's certainly not going to be $1 million. And is there someone else out there like Randall Grichuk? Just declined his option. I think he was with the Diamondbacks. Like, he was a 2-war player that can play the outfield. There might be a little bit of money there, but there's options if they don't want to go with Profar. There are other players out there that we could sign that could be just as good. But you can't beat, the vibes against replacement with him.
Yeah, I think he's a special case. He's done so well in San Diego, and then he took that deal in Colorado and just was horrible there. I think he really is comfortable in San Diego. I think some of it has to do with being around Machado and Tatis and just the the camaraderie that they have that helps. And I mean, it definitely helps that he trains with Tatis in the offseason.
Yeah.
But something he was doing this year, something changed. He was hitting the ball harder this year than he has in the past. His contract rates were up. Something changed. Now, the second half, he did fall off, but he continued to hit the ball hard. So I don't think you can just hand wave away what he did in the first half, like, oh, that's
Yeah.
a fluke. Some of that was real, but he's not an MVP caliber outfielder. That's
Right.
not who he was. That's what he was playing like first half. But so I think he comes back on some kind of a deal like that. And Preller's good at coming up with those creative, incentive laden with lots of opt outs. You know, kind of
Yeah.
like what Nick Martinez was playing on for a couple of years there. So I could see them, putting all that bag out on the table and saying, okay, Jurickson, go get it.
Yeah.
Prove to us that you are that guy.
Absolutely.
All right, so taking it over to the minor league side, we got some news, and it is a doozy. And you hate to see this kind of thing, and it's
Yeah.
even worse that the Padres happen to be involved in it. MLB finds prospect linked to Padres falsified age by Jorge Castillo and Alden Gonzalez, ESPN.com. A Major League Baseball investigation recently found a top teenage prospect in the Dominican Republic who had verbally agreed to sign with San Diego Padres falsified his paperwork and is 5 years older than previously believed. So the Padres had a handshake deal with Cesar Altagracia for $4 million, who was allegedly 14 years old, meaning he still can't sign for 2 years,
Right.
which I got a problem right there that they got a $4 million handshake deal 2 years in advance. I know that's how this works, but it's still yucky. But
Yeah.
dude's 19 years old. He's a grown man. I mean, I thought they figured out how to not do this anymore.
Yeah, well, that's why MLB has the investigative arm, and they look in this guy's deep. You saw, right before we got on, Hector Gomez posted a picture of him with the team he was playing with, and all these, like, he's a grown man with all these little kids around him, and they're on the same team. And it was ridiculous how much older he looked on his 12U team or his 15U team. I think it was a 12U team they had a picture of. Like, the kids were not even to his chest.
Uh-huh.
And he's this giant kid, which is troubling if you're that big at 14, I think, could be an issue. But we've talked about this in the past. It still happens, and it's going to continue to happen as long as Major League Baseball doesn't have an international draft. They're going to continue to do this. They're going to continue to exploit these academies, these players, and dangle a ton of money, life-changing money in front of these kids. And as long as they can do that, it's going to keep happening. This is going to keep happening.
Right. I saw somewhere that the falsified documents, they've made it a lot more difficult for this kind of thing to happen.
Yeah.
And so the documents weren't necessarily falsified. They were actually for a child who had deceased. And that's how they were able to get the documentation for this kid. I feel weird calling him a kid. He's 19. He's old enough he'd be old enough to vote if he was in this country. So and it's a shame that the Padres happen to be the team that are involved. It's just random chance, I would think, that the Padres are the team that's kind of the victim in this. I know people are going to be out there saying the Padres are playing dirty chess again, but no, this is the other way around. This is a family
Everybody
and a
plays dirty
trainer.
chess.
They're the ones taking advantage and trying to take advantage of a situation. But it did make me laugh a little bit when Jeff Passan tweeted out that, and I looked at the retweets, and it was the meme from Benchwarmers.
Oh, right.
Carlos, the big Latino guy, shows up in the muscle shirt, and he has a little piece of paper with his picture on it, and in crayon it says "I am 12." And I was just scrolling, and it was that meme over and over and over again. And it applies just so perfectly, especially when you see the picture that Jorge Gomez put out. Him up here and everybody else down here.
And this kid played in the U12 team and the U15 team. So that's 2 years ago. He played as a 16-year-old, and he's a beast compared to everyone else there. So, as long as, and we talked about this before, as long as there's no international draft where there's rankings and they're all agreed upon and there is a process in place, this is going to continue. This won't be the last time this happens. And I wouldn't be surprised if kids have signed that have got through and are under a different name than their true name is. They're a lot older. And they just got away with it. Like, this is just one of the times a kid got caught.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter about this, about the CBA, and that they worked this into. So yeah, the last CBA negotiations, the Players Association wanted to bring this into the discussion. Major League Baseball said, okay, well, we don't like the qualifying offer system. So if you're willing to take the qualifying offer system off the table, then we'll discuss an international draft. And the Players Association, they represent the pros. They don't represent amateur players. They need to look out for the people that are their card carrying union members. So, of course, that issue got swept away. But who has 100% control over this whole process? It's Major League Baseball. They're a multi-billion dollar giant corporation that has a monopoly on this industry. And so until this becomes a public relations disaster that is going to cost their bottom line, nothing's going to change. And since these things happen in third world countries where they don't have the kind of reporting, they don't have the investigative journalists down there that are going to blow these stories up and show how this whole system is exploiting families,
Yeah.
nothing's going to change. And it's just, it's unfortunate that happens, and that the sport that I love, that we're huge fans of, has this whole system of exploitation. And I mean, it's almost like indentured servitude at some point.
It's an immense imbalance of power, and it's going to continue until I mean, I don't even know how that's going to discontinue. It's just so readily made talent for such a cheap, the value you get out of these players, even the ones that sign for $10,000 or $50,000 that don't even go against the cap. They're just happy to play, and they're going to be in the complex, and they'll be happy to be at the complex their whole career until they're released.
Right. And that $10,000 bonus means a lot to their family that has invested a lot into getting them to that point. And so, yeah, you could argue that to what us may be a fairly small amount of money, that's going to make a positive change in their family. But I mean, it really is such an exploitative system when you look at how much profit Major League Baseball turns on the backs of all these kids and their families.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. So hey, let's move on. Let's move on to some good minor league ball news. I made it up to the Arizona Fall League a couple weeks back.
Tell us about your adventure.
Seemed like forever. The ABS challenge is working great. It's coming. You guys saw it in the playoff. You saw it in the World Series. We're like, God, you saw it all season. That's not a strike, or that's a ball. It's working great in the AFL. I don't think they're doing it in 25. I think Major League Baseball will do this in 26. Where
it's got to be at least another year away, but it sounds like it's worked pretty well in AAA. They're always kind of tweaking the shape and the boundary of the strike zone, how they're defining it. Because if you take that literal rectangle of a strike zone, there's some spots in there that are pretty unfair at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And if just a fraction, if just a tip of the ball is in there, it's a strike. And that's a pitch you're not going to swing at because it looks like a ball. But if just
what surprises me that they haven't. Okay, so they're applying. We're going to talk about the check swing system in a minute here, but the Hawkeye system, it tracks biometrics. It's not just tracking, where the ball goes through the strike zone. It's tracking the player's motions. It's tracking. I mean, we can see that it's tracking the bat position now. It's tracking multiple points on every player, on every player's body. It can see where the ball is in real time. You watch tennis and they use the review system to see if the ball's in or out. I'm waiting for them to start using that for fair and foul calls when the ball looks like it hit the line, and it's just the umpire, and then they review it on slow motion. Like, I want to see that VR, the CGI view where you see that stripe and you see the ball, and then it zooms way in. You see that little horseshoe shadow, like, oh, fair ball.
Fair ball. Yeah, so it's working great. The check swing that you just alluded to is still got to be a work in progress. The couple of ones that I've seen, I didn't see it. I don't think they didn't have it at the game that I went to, and I watched 3 games that day. None of the check swings.
3 games, holy cow! You're a marathon man.
Yeah, I got there at 1. My game wasn't until 6:30 that night. My interview was at 5:30. But the check swing thing is just ridiculous. A couple of those check swings were absolutely swings. But the kid pops his head, shows that that doesn't go past the plate. or even goes past the plate, but it has to go like all the way, almost like break his wrists, kind of a swing. It's not just a whoop and then back. Um, those were called
So
non-strikes, and it was
so
no ball.
what's the definition of a swing? What exactly is a swing and what's not a swing?
Well, let's talk about that for a second because you break your wrists. That's that's a swing. But we see guys, they're up here and they come, that far. That's a swing. But if the ball, if their hands are like this, like that's not a swing because the bat isn't there. But when the
According to
bat
who?
goes forward like this, and as Mud
Is
Grant
it
says, if he hits it, it's a double.
is this your interpretation of a swing?
That's my
The reason
interpretation.
I'm being weird is because there is no rule book definition of what is a swing and what's not a swing. It's up to the umpire's discretion of whether the batter made an attempt at the ball.
Yeah.
And so you ask five different guys and you get five different definitions of what is a swing. Oh, the bat broke the plane of the front of the plate, or went past parallel to the front of the plate, or what you're talking about with hand position, like it's arbitrary. It's
Yeah.
like the balk rule. Like what is a balk? Well, you just can't be out there doing a balk. That's a balk.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So I like the intent that they're going to use biometrics and start to apply it to other parts of the game. But the rule that they're going to apply it to needs to have a little better definition than it does.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's definitely a work in progress. The ABA, the challenge system is coming to Major League Baseball. It's just gonna be a little bit longer. Going on to the players, like I caught, so the game I caught, Sanabria and Salas were in. I saw a lot of him in Elsinore. I watched almost every game with him in it this year in Fort Wayne. I couldn't believe the guy can get any better, and he's gotten better. It's amazing how comfortable these pitchers are with him. I mean, he's been there for several weeks. That's fine, but like just the composure and what he's shown at one game. I saw one game in person, and it just you can see it. He's gotten better as the season's gone along. Now, during that, I remember watching the fifth inning of that tragic fifth inning for the Yankees, and not once did the catcher or the pitching coach say timeout, go out and reset the pitcher. It's like turning off, turning on, just give him a second to catch a breath, have a chat, then go back. Never saw that. I've saw Salas do that with guys that he doesn't know. I've seen him, watching the games from home. Guy throws a couple balls, maybe walked a guy, and he's throwing two balls to the next guy. Timeout, goes out there, talks to the guy. That's leadership. That's veteran leadership you're getting from an 18-year-old. And
Yeah,
we
these are
see
guys that
games.
he's known these guys for what, a few weeks, a month.
Right.
It's not even like he has a long-term relationship, friendship with these guys. He barely knows them, but he recognizes the situation like, hey, stop, come on, let's calm down. You good?
Yeah, there was an article earlier this month or last month where I can't remember what the pitcher who said like he's a master. It's a master class. Like the kid's a genius. And when you have other pitchers talk about your catcher like that when he's 18 years old, he's only going to get better. Now, the bat has really showed up for the AFL. He is I saw a butt out strikeout in his first at bat, and then he had two strikes, two strike approach, just drove the ball the other way, just put his bat head out there and hit the ball the opposite field for a single. He's only going to get better. I say we start, they would start him in Fort Wayne. I think they might start him in Double A. Have him start in Fort Wayne because he just started getting good. The bat started coming around towards the end of the season. Let him start there. And then if he's doing well, move him, at the All-Star break or beforehand. But I think the Padres might be a little aggressive, and that might kind of work against him a little bit. Having him go from there to Double A, depending on what the scouts see and the evaluators see, truly in the Arizona Fall League.
Right. I mean, so he struggled for quite a bit of the season.
Yeah.
And then he was sent to San Diego. There was an article that came out about that, and they did a little bit of work. They worked on mechanics, stand a little upright, use your leverage this way. But it also sounded like he was kind of trying too hard,
Yeah.
trying to put up numbers, trying to do this, trying to do that rather than just getting comfortable and playing ball and reacting and letting the game come to you. It sounds like he kind of relaxed a little bit that second half when he started hitting the ball better, started spraying line drives and becoming the doubles machine that he wants to be.
Yeah.
And so you can look at the numbers. Like right now, he's hitting what? He's hitting 273 with a 388 on base and 439 in the Arizona Fall League. But then you can talk about the quality of the pitching and
Right. Right.
whatever. So you can poke holes in all those arguments. But really, we saw him take a small step this year.
Yeah.
And as long as he's making continuous growth, I mean, 18 years old, he's playing the most demanding position on the field.
Yeah.
So you got to give the kid time to figure things out. And he's already doing so well defensively. Sounds
Yeah.
like framing, he's way ahead. Game calling, he's way ahead. Throwing, controlling the running game, he's outstanding. I can't believe how fast his feet are and how quick his release is. The only knock I've seen is blocking. I saw some write up that said that maybe he could be a little bit better at blocking. Again, that's another thing that comes with time. It comes with feel. It
Yeah.
comes with knowing your pitchers,
Yeah.
and all of this. There was an interview. There was an interview with David Larilla on Fangraphs. He does these articles every week, and it's an interview with somebody, and then a bunch of little tidbits. He talked to Ethan, and he's been messing with mechanics throughout the season. One knee down, right knee, left knee down, staying on both feet. He's gotten down on both knees at times, depending. And he's trying all kinds of different things defensively to figure out what works for him, both from the framing side
Yeah.
and from the blocking side, as well as being able to control the running game at the same time. He's gonna be really good. My only question is he gonna be your major league kind of veteran status, or is he gonna be a superstar?
Right.
I feel like his floor is already pretty dang high. You know,
Yeah.
as long as nothing tragic happens the next 4 or 5 years, he's going to be starting for somebody in the major leagues, and he's going to be holding down a job for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just something that we haven't talked about. I'm still Team Campy, and I think they should give him another shot. Early after the end of the season, he was already in Arizona changing his swing. He went back to a regular, traditional swing instead of this funky hands way up front. So he's still working at things, still trying to get better. So we'll see how that goes in the future. But I'm still Team Campy. Going on to
Well, one way or another, you can't pencil Salas in. I've seen people saying maybe he'll be up by the end of next
yeah,
season.
yeah,
You can't pencil him
no,
into the plans until he proves that he's ready. And I don't think
right,
you plan for that in the next year at least. So they need to bring a couple of guys on to take the starting role. Let Campy move into it at his pace, or
right.
maybe they wind up moving Campy. But either way,
Right.
you can't plan on Salas really being a contributor,
No.
until he shows it at a high level.
No, absolutely. And there's no reason to rush it. Like let him learn. Let him continue to learn and get better and grow into that body. As he gets bigger, he's gonna get stronger. And he's just gonna get better. Romeo Sanabria, the kid's been hitting everywhere he goes. Um, he doesn't have the power. He talked to me about wanting to change his swing a little bit, getting more lift on the ball. He wants to turn 11 home runs into 15 or 20 next season. So, but he's hitting for average, playing solid first base. Um, love that kid. And Romeo, and De Vries, Leo, man, the kid is just, you can't stat the stat line with him, but you can watch the at bats and you see mature at bats. You see an approach, and he's sticking with the approach. And it's early, so the results, some of our results aren't there. He's not hitting for average, but you see the intent. You see the approach with him, and the approach is there, and everything else will come with time.
Well, and again, you need to remember that he's 18 years old.
Yeah,
He's the age of a high school senior, just like Salas,
yeah,
and it's his first year in pro ball.
yeah,
So he did pretty well in single A. Showed up pretty well in the second half, and it's a great season. And so you can't expect too much out of a kid like that in the Arizona Fall
no,
League. Going to get some. I mean, now, granted, the quality of the pitching is hit or miss, but all of those guys are more advanced. You don't see a whole lot of single A pitchers in the Arizona Fall League. Most of those guys are high A, double A kind of caliber, a little more advanced than what Leo's seen so far.
yeah, absolutely. And then who else I saw? I saw Dave Morgan pitch an inning. Short guy, start armor, throws really hard. Nice movement on his pitches. You can't stout. Once again, you can't scout the stat line with him. The ERAs are in the Arizona Fall League are horrible because these kids got like 14, 12, 15 innings. and they give up a couple runs, and it's overinflated. He looked really good. I reached out to him. We'll probably have him come on the pod sometime in the off season as we get going further down the line. But had a
Nice.
really good trip. It was a quick interviews, watched the game, post some video, went to bed, woke up the next morning, got breakfast, and bounced.
Well, old friend of the podcast, uh, uh, Dave Moser is out there. Ryan
Yep.
Bergert, Harry Gustin, and Luis Herman are also out there on the Peoria Javelinas
Yeah.
staff. But you had an opportunity to talk to a couple of guys.
Yeah, absolutely. De Vries and Romeo Sanabria. They didn't give me enough time to talk to Salas. I was going to go out there this coming up weekend. It looks like that's not going to happen. So my one trip to the Arizona Fall League, which I'm grateful for. I'm glad to create a relationship with them. It is Major League Baseball. It's not an affiliate. So the woman told me, she's like, hey, if the Padres wanted to talk to one of the players, they have to go through us. Like, it's not you come do what you want. It's you go. This is the Major League Baseball event. So it was good getting that relationship with them. I have both their numbers. It's Mike and Julie. Sorry. It's funny, when I first showed up, I walked in. I'm standing there watching the game on the concourse behind, and there's a woman with like an Arizona Fall League shirt, and I'm like, she's looking at me, I'm looking at her, and I'm like, Julie. She's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, blah, me. I start going, blah, 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 yeah. I just got here. You're probably thinking of another Julia. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah. Yeah. I just texted her. I thought you were her. And she's like, no. She was like the equipment manager for the Solar Sox. So, but it was really good to get the credentials, really good to get out there. And ran into Josh Norris. He's going to come on the pod. He spent a lot of time out there in an Arizona Fall League. He knows his stuff. So we're going to have him coming on the pod in
Baseball
the
America.
future. Absolutely. Baseball America.
And then
yeah,
Ben,
really quick trip. I want to plan more time, depending on where I am. Well, next year I'll be out. We'll be here still in San Diego. So I plan on going out there again. Maybe try to stay a little bit longer, catch a couple games. I don't see the Padres sending out this high caliber of players next year. I'm not sure if we're going to have any, a De Vries or a Salas, make it out to the Arizona Fall League next year.
Cobb Hightower might be out there.
Yeah, could be. Some of
You
these new
never
draft pick
know that
kids.
they had a pretty strong draft this year.
Yeah,
So next year you might see some kids pop and then they might make it out there. Who knows?
absolutely. But that's it. You guys want to hang around and listen to these quick interviews that I did with Leodalis De Vries and Romeo Sanabria? Please check them out.
It's been nice catching up with you, Donovan. It's been too long.
Absolutely. We'll get together soon. All right. Till then,
All
you can
right.
find me on Twitter at SD Donavan.
I'm at Zippy_TMS. Let's go, Peoria Javelinas.
Woo, Javelinas. Well, hey, we're here at the Arizona Fall League with Romeo Sanabria. Good to see you again too. You've changed work addresses a few times since the last time we talked.
Yeah,
coming here to Arizona kind of brings you back full circle. How's that feel?
Feels great. It's going from California to Fort Wayne. It was a big change there weather-wise, and then going there to San Antonio was a great jump. But I remember talking to you about it. We were like excited to do it.
So I see here in Arizona, you get more of an inside-out swing, a little more opposite field approach. Is that something that you're working on?
Something I wanted to work on because I know once I got to San Antonio, I was kind of getting pull happy. So when I got here, I wanted to try it out against some really good competitors, pitching wise. So I wanted to try out something stay with my approach that I did in Lakey that helped made me.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to try it.
So some of the challenges you've faced this season, going up the ladder, from high A, double A. What are some of the challenges you've had?
Challenges, I was just say it's just bouncing around. You're gonna go from new fields to new fields, new competitors. Everybody there is hungry,
Yeah.
It's the only thing I can say. Everybody that goes from Lakey to Fort Wayne usually sees no competition. You see similar faces in their clubhouse. I saw Salas, and I played with Salas the whole time. It's a familiar face. Shout out him. But going to there from San Antonio, Same thing, new people, big leaguers. I faced Kumar Rocker, DeGrom, those big arms.
I watched that game, and he was on fire that
Great,
night.
bro. Electric. It was a hell of a time. I was up there like, wow, I'm facing DeGrom. Shook me out, but still, I can say something. I faced DeGrom.
Absolutely. So what are some of the challenges you've seen in some of the levels? Where do you have to make the most adjustments?
Most adjustments, just knowing, just sticking by your plan, but then seeing what the pitchers do, because every pitcher's going to pitch their ways. You have your approach, but usually the pitchers are going to try to get you out, and you got to try to figure that out in a week base, because 6-game series, they're going to all pitch like the way they want to pitch, and if you fall into their game, then you're going to struggle. That's the only challenge I'll say. Especially in Double A, those pitchers are dominant. They're there for a reason, so you got to go there with a plan, and you got to adjust every time.
Absolutely. So here you're playing with a different organizations, different players from different organizations, different coaches from different organizations. Have you been able to pick any brains there? Some of the other players, how they approach the game?
Yeah, of course. I've been talking to a bunch of people, McKay, Baldwin, everybody, like you said, everybody's from a different organization, but they all have their ways of playing the game. So it's like picking their brains about their approach or about catching, but they all just say like at the end of the day, we're here for a reason. It's to have a fun experience. Yeah, it's going to be a competition, but just have fun at the end of the day.
And you have been having fun. You have hit in every level.
Yeah, I know. It's been an exciting year, and get to finish here. It's one way I can put the 2024 in the books.
Right. So are you going to stay here in Arizona, or are you going to go home?
No, after the 6 weeks here, I'm going to head home. I'm going to go on a cruise ship.
Where are you going?
Royal Caribbean.
Oh, epic. That's great. So in the off season, what are you going to focus here on the off season?
Off season, usually I just got to continue focusing on my body. That's one thing I want to always try to get better on, of course. And then hitting, try to see if I could try to lift the ball a little more, because I want to try to get my 11 home runs into like 15.
Okay.
Or I want to try to just drive the ball more. Of course, stay by my game. That's what I've been doing the whole year this year. That may be what I am today here. But I'm just trying to see what else I can add to the tool bag.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming by.
It was a pleasure.
Good to
Always
see you.
talking to you.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you later. Well, hey, we're in the Arizona Fall League with El Mutante, Leodalis De Vries. How you doing?
¿Cómo te sientes?
Bien, contento de estar aquí compartiendo con todos ustedes.
He's happy to be here and sharing this time with you.
Hey, this is your first time here in the States. How was the transition from going from the Dominican Republic to a new culture, new language, and all that comes with being a professional ball player?
Okay, que este es tu primer año aquí en Estados Unidos. ¿Cómo ha sido tu ajuste de venir de Dominicana para acá con una nueva cultura, lugares que nunca había estado? ¿Cómo has manejado eso?
No, nada, contento. Vengo detrás de un sueño y creo que todo es de adaptación. Yo solo vengo a divertirme y a jugar béisbol.
Okay. Nothing, he's just here having fun, and he's living his dream, what he always dreamed of, and he's just here to have fun, play baseball, and do his thing.
What was your go-to comida in Elsinore?
¿Qué era lo que comías en Lake
Me
Elsinore?
gusta el chipole.
Chipotle.
Parecido a la comida dominicana.
It's the closest thing to his food back in the DR.
Of course. So your approach this year never changed, even though you didn't get the results that you were expecting. But then in July, you started hitting. Did something change there?
Que durante la temporada no hubieron muchos cambios que notaron que hiciste, pero después llegó julio y comenzaste a batear mucho. ¿Qué tienes para comentar de eso?
No, creo que fue algo de adaptación. Me fui adaptando. Mi primera temporada creo que fui ajustando y haciendo muchas cosas para mejorar y creo que no cambié nada de mi mecánica ni de mi swing. Solo fui a hacer lo que se hace, a divertirme, y las cosas comenzaron a funcionar.
He just started adapting to the league and the pitchers, started improving on what he saw that he needed to improve, and with time, everything started falling in place, and he felt that he was doing pretty good. Yeah.
Mucho a la calle. Your first season in pro ball, you go to the playoffs. You make the postseason. How was that experience?
Primera temporada en béisbol profesional y fuiste de una vez a los playoffs. ¿Cómo te sientes con eso?
Contento. Creo que eso era algo que andaba buscando. Quiero ayudar a mi equipo en lo más que pueda para ver si podemos pasar los playoffs. Lástima no pude jugarlo, pero me sentí muy contento de estar compartiendo con mi compañero en unos playoffs.
It was great. That's what you worked towards to help the team to make it to the playoff. Unfortunately, he couldn't play in the playoff, but it was still a great opportunity to be there with the team, and
Oh yeah, I knew that. I watched the playoffs. You weren't in it. So how's this AFL experience been with you here? You have Romeo here, you have Ethan here. Does that make you feel more comfortable?
¿Cómo te has sentido aquí en la Fall League? Obviamente tienes a Romeo y a Ethan aquí, que si piensas que eso te ayuda.
Claro, claro, he compartido mucho con ellos de Spin Trainer, con Romeo, con Ethan, me siento contento de estar jugando con ellos aquí. Y hay muchos chamaquitos aquí con mucho talento, muchas personas buenas aquí que puedo aprender muchas cosas de ellos.
He's happy to be playing with them. He spent a lot of time with them, obviously during spring training, and he's just happy to hang out with them. And there's also a lot of people, good players here that he's enjoying his time with them.
So what's your focus going to be on the off season?
¿Cuál va a ser tu enfoque en el off-season?
Seguir trabajando todo, creo que siempre hay algo que mejorar de todas las cualidades, de todas las habilidades. Quiero mejorar mi cuerpo, quiero venir preparado para el nuevo reto que viene el año que viene. Muchas cosas que no conocía antes de filmar, ahora las conocí, creo que tengo que prepararme bien para el año que viene.
Keep working overall in everything because there's always room for improvement in every area. Obviously, keep working on his body, get bigger, and there's a lot of stuff that he learned in his first season, stuff that he didn't know from professional baseball that he knows now. So he's looking forward for next season.
Okay, so maybe next year you'll be in Fort Wayne. It gets very cold. Have you ever seen snow?
Que tal vez el año que viene va para Fort Wayne y obviamente es un lugar bastante frío, que si alguna vez has visto la nieve.
No, no he visto la nieve, pero estoy contento de eso, quiero ir para allá. Quiero jugar donde quiera que yo me ponga, estoy dispuesto a jugar allá.
No, he has never seen snow, but he's happy to go there. He obviously wants to play there.
Well, it's going to be very cold there. Stay warm, stay hot. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, muchas gracias.